And now, it's time for the Well-Read Llama with your host, author Erin Mifflin.
Hello, listeners. Can you feel summer winding down? Maybe not, because it is still awfully hot outside. But when you listen to this episode, it's back to school week for me. I really do love my job teaching at a Christian school, and I'm looking forward to seeing all my students again. Since I work with multiple grades, I get to see the same students through the years before they graduate. I love that. It's a joy getting to be part of their lives, and I'm very aware that as one of their teachers, I will be, one of the voices that they hear in their head as they go forward through life. And I really want to use that to be an encouragement to them and a blessing to them. And so that they can remember sometimes we come up in hard things in life, like the math problems that we might not want to do, but we can do hard things. So, you know what else is hot besides the weather? Romantic suspense books. Today, we're going to be talking to Kelly Borjas, a debut author with a So Hot It Isn't Even Out Yet new release. Her book, High Exposure, releases next month, but you can pre-order it now. So I'm looking forward to talking with Kelly about her book, and hopefully it'll be one that you will want to check out, and you can go and pre-order it. And we'll also be talking about Kelly's journey to publication, which has been on a very similar timeline to mine. So it's been fun to watch each other along the way. And now we get to cheer for each other with our debut books coming out so soon. Before we begin, I would appreciate it if you would take a moment to follow me on social media. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram at author Erin Mifflin. And as I mentioned, my own debut novel will be coming out soon. It's coming out next April. It's a historical romance set at the 1904 World's Fair. So you can follow me for all the updates about this release, as well as any other special announcements along the way. You can also stay up to date on the next author we'll be talking to here on the show. Next week, I have another debut author lined up, and you won't want to miss that either. But now let's bring in today's guest and find out about her upcoming novel. Hello, Kelly, and welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Erin.
Yes. So your novel, High Exposure, is coming out next month. What is this story about?
All right. Well, I'll give you the official hook for it that we use. But when a dead body and meth ring turn up in a small town in Colorado, can a former DEA agent protect the intriguing travel writer intent upon investigating his town before she's the next casualty? So we follow Julia Stevens, who comes to a small Colorado mountain town in winter. And when she arrives, she discovers a dead body. And she is trying to figure out her life. She's running from some grief and she wants to be a journalist. So she decides she's going to figure out what happened to this man. And simultaneously, our hero, Kate Haskins, moves back home to his small hometown to help run the family hotel. He's a former DEA agent, and all of a sudden he realizes this dead body is connected to a meth ring, and he needs to help solve the problem for the safety of his town and for the safety of Julia, who keeps getting herself into problems and mishaps related to the meth ring.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of different things going on there.
Yes, there are.
Now, do you have a personal connection to the setting of High Exposure?
I do. So it's set in Silverburg, Colorado, which is a fictional town. However, I loosely based it off of Silverton, Colorado, which is a real town. And I grew up in Durango, which is about an hour away. And Durango makes a little appearance in the book, but basically it's all Southwest Colorado. And I spent all of my childhood years there.
Well, I bet that was fun to bring it to life through the page.
Oh, it was so much fun. And the fun thing about writing is you can make characters a little more adventurous than you are. So not only did I get to bring it to life, but I got to put my characters through things I'm not quite brave enough to do myself.
Yes. Well, that brings me to my next question, which is your main character has a past as a skier. And do you personally take part in any winter sports?
Yes. So I did grow up skiing. In fact, I had some winters where I'd go every single weekend. And I also, have done cross country skiing and snowshoeing and some of those things. But I am like recreational. I can ski blues now, whereas my character trained for the Olympics. So I did have exposure, but not quite as much as my characters.
Right. So, like you're talking about, you get to make her a little more adventurous there, huh?
Exactly. And every time I go skiing now, I think about my character and I think, oh, she'd be so much braver than I would be. But
Oh,
hey, at least I'm doing it.
that's right. That's so fun when you get to do that. I know for one of my historical novels, I was, researching, I had the calendar for the year and I'm plotting out what needs to happen when. And my character's birthday is like a turning point. And I'm looking at this calendar and I realize it makes sense. My character's birthday is the same day as my birthday.
I do love how that happens.
That's so
It's great.
fun. Now, why is it important to you to include a faith element in your novels?
Wow, such a good question. Well, because faith is the most important thing that all humans have to grapple with. We all have to ask the question at some point in our lives, what do we believe about God? Who do we say Jesus is? And so I just think it's so important as I write fiction to have my characters grapple with some of those questions too. It makes it feel authentic, like they're authentically living life as they go through their journey.
That makes so much sense. And yeah, that is a very human question, isn't it?
Yeah, I think on a little soapbox, all fiction, so much fiction can be beautiful. And I have friends who write without a faith theme and they still have some fantastic life lessons or morals. And I have some friends slash books I read that are just kind of escape and surface level, still clean books. I think they all have their place and they all serve a purpose. Just for me, part of why I write is to really understand facets of life. And so it's hard for me to dig into some of those life issues without having a faith component.
Yes, I completely agree with you there. There's definitely a place for the clean stories, and that is wonderful. But to me, it just kind of feels like something's a little bit missing. I'm like, oh, it's so close to just being like, Jesus is the answer?
Exactly. And I also just feel like this is what God has called me to do. And other people have, a different calling in how their writing or their art looks. But this is the direction He's pulled me. So I want to be faithful to that.
Yes. Now, High Exposure is the first book in a new series, and I know it's not even out yet, but can you give us a sneak peek into what the next one is about?
I sure can. The next one it actually has one of my favorite tropes. It's brother's best friend, little sister. So we follow our hero from the first book. His name is Cade. We follow his best friend, Ace, who was also a former DEA agent. He becomes a new believer. And Cade's younger sister, Amy, is in danger. She discovered some fugitives hiding in the mountains and they threatened her. And so Ace must protect Amy while she trains for a 100-mile ultra marathon through the mountains. And they must figure out what these fugitives were up to before it's too late.
Oh, that sounds very exciting. And again, another like big sports theme there too.
Yes, I have friends who have done ultra marathons. I cannot say that I have done that. I ran one marathon, but I have never done an ultra, and people do it. It's just amazing to see what people can do. So I'm in awe of those ultra runners.
Yes. So, High Exposure is your debut novel. Can you tell us about your journey to becoming a published author?
I can, and I will tell you, it's been a long journey. So I started writing an iteration of this book about 11 years ago. And as life goes, I started it and then maybe I'd have another kid. I had one kid at the time, but then once I had a kid, I took a break from writing and then I'd come back to it. And then I wrote the second one and then I'd come back to it. So basically, I've been writing for 11 years and it's been a really slow process. I would enter contests and I would get terrible results on those contests.
Oh,
And then I'd enter again and I'd win one or I'd final in one. So yeah, it's basically been an 11-year journey. And through that time, I ended up eventually winning the Genesis contest through ACFW. I found a critique group through ACFW, met some writer friends, and then I signed with my agent maybe 2 or 3 years ago, Lynette Eason. and then signed with Kriegel about a year and a half ago. So it's just been a slow journey with a lot of ups and downs and just continued practice on my craft and taking what I learn and putting myself back out there again.
Yes, it is definitely a process. And I've gone through so many of those same things too. And just talking about the Genesis contest and sometimes like the mixed results that you can get. I have also won the Genesis contest. And I remember when I got those scores back, and one of the judges had given me a 51
Yes.
out of 100. And
Yes.
I still won the contest. And I was like, wow, because I've also judged in some of those contests. And I was like, I hope I'm never the judge who ends up giving a 51 to the winner, you know?
I know. And isn't that I mean, it can be a little demoralizing, like, especially when you look back at school, you're like, did I ever get a 51 on an exam? I don't even know. But yeah, I'll tell you, one time in the last year, I was talking to my husband about writing, and I said, it's just so much rejection. You're rejected by contests, and then you get turned down by agents, and then you get turned down by publishers. And then, at some point, I'm going to have readers and I'm going to get criticism there. And he looked at me and he goes, you picked a really interesting career for being a people pleaser. There's something in it that I think to willingly put yourself through that process, you have to have a deep passion to write, and you have to believe that it's where God's put you.
That is so true. There's been times when it did seem like nothing was happening. And I did come to the point a few years ago where I just prayed and I said, Lord, if this is not what you have for me, I am willing to lay it down.
Mm,
And just 2 days later, I had a request for a full manuscript. And I was like, well, okay, this is
there you
still
go.
from the Lord, and just keep pressing on because, yeah, you do have to know that it's from Him to keep going.
Absolutely. And am I allowed to ask where you are in your writing journey, Erin?
Yeah. So my debut comes out next April.
Oh, congratulations. I didn't know that. Who will you be with?
So I'm with Ashbury Lane, which is a division of Whitefire. So Rosanna White's company.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay, well, there you go. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, very exciting. So, yeah, just I know we've kind of both been like along the same path in so many ways. And so, is there any other word of encouragement that you might have for any listeners who have a story on their heart? And, here we're talking about how it is such a long journey, but if God has called you to it, just keep pressing on. But do you have another word of encouragement for any listeners who might have a story on their heart?
Absolutely. So if you have a story in your heart, get it on paper. And honestly, the first version probably won't be great. You won't know how to do the craft. You won't know how to build tension. You won't know how to layer your characters, but get it on paper. And then find an organization where you can connect with other writers. For me, that was American Christian fiction writers. And like I said earlier, through that, met critique partners, met my podcast co hosts. I actually met my publisher at ECFW as well. So, the biggest piece of advice I can give is connect with other writers, and that's how you'll continue to learn and grow.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, you are a romantic suspense author. Do you enjoy reading romantic suspense? And who are some of your favorite authors?
Okay, I do love reading romantic suspense, and I am going to actually give a caveat. I love the romance. So if I'm candid, I don't love just suspense. I want romance in there. So I tend to gravitate towards some of the books where the romance is a little bit heavier. So probably my all-time favorite romantic suspense author is Lynn H. Blackburn. She's fantastic. And I also love Danny Petrie, Natalie Walters, Elizabeth Goddard, and of course, my agent, Lynette Eason, is somewhat the queen of romantic suspense in my mind.
Yes, she's definitely a good one there. Now,
She's
you
fan-
mentioned your podcast, and can you tell us about your Lit Ladies podcast?
Sure. Yes, my friends, Carissa and Christy. So, Carissa, Christy, and Kelly, we are the Lit Ladies, and we actually live in different parts of the country, and we have kids of all ages, and we discuss reading and writing from a biblical worldview. So, we tend to take a topic that we want to explore and then either discuss it amongst ourselves or bring a guest on about that. So, we've had topics such as AI and the reading and writing world. We've had topics about why literature still matters. We've talked about Tolkien and his influence on literature. We've talked about romance and what makes a standout romance. We've talked about horror and whether Christians should read or write horror. So we tend to just take some of these topics and try to break them down from a Christian perspective.
Well, that sounds so interesting. Where can listeners find that?
We are everywhere there are podcasts. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we are Lit Ladies Podcast. And we actually are on a break and we will be launching in September and we will go every other Friday.
All right. And if you're on a break, that's the perfect time for readers to go and catch up, right?
Exactly. Yes. I think we are all moms. And so we all learned early on we have to take summer off because we've got to be around for our kids during summer.
Yes. Well, speaking of your kids, how do you balance writing and podcasting with being a wife and mother?
Okay, that's a good question. And someone asked me this the other day and I didn't have a good answer. I said, you just have to take the top priority and figure out what that is. But here's the truth. The truth is my kids are all in school now, and so I have more time. Before my kids were in school, it was really hard to find that balance. So I could typically find time to write. I would get up early in the morning and write, or write at nap time, or right after they went to bed. But along with the writing journey, there's writing the books, but then there's also a lot of work once you get into having an agent and a publisher. You've
Yes.
got proposals and interview questions and social media to post, and there's just a lot of administrative work. And I don't think I had the time for that until I had my kids in school.
Yeah, that definitely frees up your days, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. And I mean, it's amazing how busy the days can still get, but at least I have a little bit of margin in there so I can use it to focus on writing.
So, as busy as you are, what are some of the other delights in your life besides the ones that we've talked about?
Well, I love to spend time outside. So I love to run or walk. I love to go to the lake with my family, camping. Most of the time, if I'm outside, I feel most refreshed.
I love being outside too. It's just such a good way to even connect with the Lord and just to appreciate nature and everything.
Absolutely. Yep. It's a real reset.
Is there a scripture that has been meaningful to you recently?
I love this question. And if I'm being honest, it's hard to pick just one. But I will pick Philippians 1:6. And I will say it's meaningful for me personally. He who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. I love that idea. I love that no matter what we go through in life, God's not done working and he uses our circumstances to draw us closer to him. I think that's such a beautiful image. And it happens to be the verse that Julia, my hero, really grapples with. She wonders if her life is over or if God can still redeem her life. And so that's the verse my heroine has to really wrestle with. And as I said earlier, typically fiction is a way I work out my own issues in life. And that's an issue I've had to wrestle with. So I love that verse.
I like that too. And I think that's just a good verse for writers in general to know that if you have started on this path with God, that God has put you on this path, he will bring it to completion in his timing, which is sometimes the hard part, but
Exactly.
he
It's
will
so
bring it
true,
about.
though. Yep. It's so true.
Now, how can readers connect with you?
Okay. Well, I'm pretty active on Instagram at Kelly Borjas Writes. And my website, kellyborjas.com, has all the ways to connect with me. I am in the process of a revamp. I think it should be up and live by the time this episode airs. So if for some reason a reader were to check it out and it's not live, it will be within the days. So yeah, kellyborjas.com. And I love emails. So Kelly at kellyborjas.com. I'd love to hear from readers.
All right, that sounds great. And I hope that they will go and check it out and pre order your book.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Listeners, please do go to kellyborjas.com to see Kelly's new website. And if it's not up quite yet, when you first go there, it should be up very soon. And you can find all the links to follow her and pre-order her book. And also, check out her podcast. That sounds really interesting. But let me spell her name for you. Kelly Borjas. That's KELLYBORJAS.com. gmail.com. And she mentioned her agent, Lynette Eason, who is also a wonderful author. I actually don't read a ton of romantic suspense just because that's not my favorite genre, but I have read some of Lynette's and they're very good. I've also read Kate Angelo, who has written at least one book, I think maybe two books with Lynette Eason. And Kate is one of my local author friends, and so we get to see each other face to face. And her latest book, Girl Lost, is so good. It is really good. I would definitely recommend that one. It probably is a little more on the suspense side, but there is some romance too. So Kate Angelo is another one that I would recommend. And Colleen Coble, I have read some of her books as well. She has a book that she co-wrote with Rick Acker that's called I Think I Was Murdered. Isn't that an intriguing title? As soon as I heard that title and read the premise of that book, I was like, I have to read that one. And so I listened to it on audiobook and it was really good. It's actually has a lot to do with AI, which Kelly mentioned in our interview. And so it was just very intriguing. I think I was murdered. I have some friends who read every Colleen Coble book, so I know that she is a very beloved romantic suspense author. Susan May Warren is another one, and I actually haven't read any of her romantic suspense, but she is an excellent author. And I have read some of her other books that were more romance and not the suspense. And she's very prolific as well. So if you are interested in reading Susan May Warren, you may need to find like a list of how to read her books because she has so many. She is an extremely prolific writer. I think one of the founders of Christian romantic suspense would have to be Dee Henderson, and her O'Malley series is a perennial favorite about the 7 O'Malley siblings. This is a found family series in the sense that the siblings grew up in a group home. They were all abandoned or orphaned. And so they grew up in a group home. They were not in foster care, they were in a home. And as they grew up together, they formed a bond and they all decided when they became adults, they would change their last name to O'Malley and just claim each other as family. And they go through adventures together. They all have extremely interesting careers. One of them is a hostage negotiator. One of them is a U.S. Marshal. One of them is a trauma counselor. One of them is a firefighter, and on it goes. And they each have their own story, but all the characters, the whole sibling set appears throughout the series. So those books are a little bit older now, but they are still highly recommended and still some of my favorites. And they're definitely ones that stay on my keeper shelf. And I would also say that those are probably equal parts romance and suspense because there's definitely romance in there. And if you like suspense, romantic suspense, you can even find it in historical books. I think of Rosanna White, who, as I mentioned in the interview, is my publisher, which is so exciting. And Crystal Cottle is another one. And you can definitely find them out there. So if you like that gripping mystery and edge of your seat, what's going to happen, those would be some authors that I would recommend. I do feel so thankful and blessed for my debut to be coming out next year. Like Kelly, it has been a process, but it has also been a joy. And I'm currently in the middle of, writing to deadline for the second book, as well as getting ready for edits for the first book to come out. And then I'm also have a scene to develop before I can turn in a prequel novella. And I have a short story that's going to be coming out. So there is a lot that's going on too. So if you would like to keep up with my writing journey, I would absolutely love for you to check out my website, authorerinmifflin.com, and sign up for my monthly newsletter to keep up with all the latest that's going on with me. And I just love to have you along for the journey there. And if you are interested in more author interviews, I have quite a few that are on my YouTube channel that I have done at author Erin Mifflin. Of the authors that I mentioned earlier, I have talked to Kate Angelo, so that might be one that you would like to look up if you are needing something to read before Kelly's book comes out. If you are like, oh, this genre sounds so good, who can I read until High Exposure comes out? I would definitely recommend Girl Lost by Kate Angelo. And again, you can find my interview with her by going to my YouTube channel, author Erin Mifflin. You can also find me on Facebook or Instagram. And yeah, I would just love it if you would follow me there. Until next time, happy reading.
Join us next week for another episode of The Well-Read Llama with your host, author Erin Mifflin. If you'd like to find out more about author Erin Mifflin, visit her Facebook and Instagram accounts.